Golfers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to talk about two common issues I see on a regular basis that's corresponding to a slight backswing issue. So, biggest issue I see to start off with is a lot of golfers who struggle with an inside takeaway. So if you visualise that you're hitting a long putt, a lot of golfers, when you hit a long putt, the putter hands are a little bit higher at dress because the grip's a little bit more through the lifeline of your hand. So essentially the grip's a little bit weaker when we're putting, so the grip's a little bit more through the palm. How that translates into a full swing issue is a lot of golfers will have their hands relatively high at dress. So if you think, the higher I have my hands, the more the club's going to sit more in the palm of my hand. As we work the club back, the tendency from there, as the club starts to work back, this left wrist is then going to start to arch towards the ground. So if you think about the term flexion and extension, when my hands are a little bit high at dress, for my left wrist to line up going back, I have to create a little bit forearm roll where the knuckles of my left hand go down towards the ground. So if my hands are a little bit high at dress, the club to line up properly is always going to go slightly inside. So my left wrist gets in a slightly bowed position. As you can see from there, the knuckles and my left hand go towards the ground. And look at the orientation of the club face. Club face gets really close. Left wrist gets a little bit bowed, club face gets a little bit strong. That's a simple action that you can create when you're pitching, where you want to hit a little bit of a chip shot where your hands get really high. But as that corresponds to full swing, where the grip gets a little bit more in the palm, hands get a little bit high. So essentially what we've got is we've got a little bit too much ulnar deviation, where my thumb wants to go down towards the ground a little bit more. If I have too much hinge, where I've got too much radial deviation, where I create a slight angle on my wrist, so my thumb gets closer to my wrist angle, my thumb goes more towards the sky. So too much ulnar deviation, thumb's too much down towards the ground, relatively flat left wrist. The club's going to essentially go a little bit more inside and around, so hands higher, too much ulnar deviation, clubs goes a little bit inside. Knuckles on the left hand go too much towards the ground, club head gets essentially too far inside. We get really flat at the top of the backswing. So whatever way our hands are positioned at dress, it's going to influence how they line up going back and how they line up at the top of the backswing. So if your hands are quite high, where the grip's a little bit in the palm like we hit a long putt, the club will always have a tendency for us to line that up. There's not a lot of hinge when our hands are quite high, so we've got too much forearm roll, club head gets inside. Then as we get to the top of the backswing, club face gets to strong position. Vice versa, you've heard of that term before, if we hit a bunker shot, we stand really far away. So if I stand really far away, my hands get quite low. So we get a little bit arch in this left wrist. Ulnar deviation, thumbs towards the ground. Too much radial deviation, basically too much hinge, where the thumb goes more towards the sky. And create a much more distinct angle between my thumb and my wrist joint, so that thumb gets close to my wrist joint. We create a slight angle there. If you're somebody that stands a little bit too far away from the golf ball, where your hands sit quite low, you've got a little bit too much extension. This is a really good setup procedure if you want to hit a bunker shot, where we have to have lots of hinge and lots of speed, and help us utilise a little bit more of the bounce. But if you go with your hands a little bit too low, it's going to encourage this left wrist to start cupping a little bit too early, so hands lower. It's going to encourage a little bit more hinge, so the grip in the club's going down. I feel like my thumb gets closer to the sky. Then from there, because my hands are quite low, it's going to allow the club to sit a little bit quicker into the backswing. So if you're somebody that struggles with the club working outside and up too quickly, you need to look at your hand position. So think if your hands are too low, we're going to take too much hinge on the way back. So if my hands are almost at knee height, as I work the club back, I'm going to take too much hinge. So from there, the arms are working up too quickly and not enough around, and the club has a tendency to get a little bit cuppy at the top, where the club face gets a little bit open. So if you can see the top edge of the club slightly behind your shaft, the inside takeaway, your hands could be a little bit too high, the grip could be a little bit too much in the palm of your hand, so the grip end of the club is going straight up towards the sky as you want the club back. For us to line that club up, we've got a little bit too much forearm roll, the knuckles on the left hand go too much down towards the ground. If you see the action of the face, glove face gets really closed. Then as we work to the top, glove face gets extremely closed. So you're going to have to match that grip around the shape of your golf swing. Not too far away. Grip end of the club goes from straight up towards the sky, almost points straight towards my belt buckle. Hands get quite low. Grip's a little bit more on the fingers, so hands get almost level with my knees. Grip end of the club gets lower compared to the sky. Left wrist is a little bit more on a cup position, so that would be slightly bowed position. Work club back, still bowed. A little bit lower, we would create a little bit more of an angle on the left wrist, where we create a little bit too much hinge. Hands are lower, club's going to hinge up a little bit more. It's going to incorporate a little bit more on open club face, so that would be flat, that would be a little bit bowed, where the club face gets quite strong. And if you're somebody whose hands are quite low at address, as we start to work the club back, the left wrist is going to start to cup, start flat, club face relatively square. Cuppy, the knuckles are pointed back at the wrist, club face gets really open, and then as we come down, great action if you hit a bunker shot. So really, if you're somebody that struggles with that action, you need to find a middle ground. Okay, what's right, what's wrong, what works for you, what doesn't. Simple drill, put your hands together. We're not going too much at this, where the thumbs go too much towards your hip, or the thumbs go too much towards the sky. What you're going to try and do is at the end of the day, your upper body, as in your torso, as in your kind of core, is the engine of the golf swing. You're going to try and move everything a little bit more functionally back together. So simple drill, place the club against kind of your belly button, so the grip end of the club's dissected through your belly button. If you work the club back and get the club working really inside too early, when my left arm's almost cemented to the chest, grip end of the club points out towards your ball to target line. Vice versa, if I go too much hinge too early, grip end of the club points outside my right foot. Really, what we're trying to do, try and keep the grip end of the club in close proximity to your upper body. As I work the club halfway back, so the shaft's parallel to the ground, the grip end of the club should still be connected to my belly button. From here, the shaft matches the angle of my feet, the club face matches the angle of my spine. The rotational part comes first, then the second part is going on a little bit hinged, so I feel like the grip end of the club goes down a little bit more backswing. It doesn't go down too early. The rotational part, work the club back, keep the grip close to your body. Then as we get to shaft parallel to the ground, I'm going to feel from here two things. Grip end of the clubs go down, so I feel like my left hand goes down, my right hand's pulling up, so left hand down, left hand pushes down, right hand pulls up. That's going to get the club in a relatively good position coming to the top of the backswing. If you can get the club set in the right position going back, and a little bit of rotation, then you're going to add a little bit of hinge. If you're somebody that adds the hinge in too early, then as in the rotation length, the tendency is you're going to get a little bit stuck. So find the middle ground. What you're trying to do, simple drill, put the club against your stomach. If you roll it too early, grip end of the club points towards the target line, shaft gets really flat. Too much hinge, grip goes down too early, so grip close to your stomach. Nice posture, nice shoulders working down and across. As the club shaft gets parallel to the ground, the grip end of the club still stays connected with my body. My arms haven't got too stuck behind my body, they're not going too up and back. This is pushing down, right hand's pulling up. Hands are pretty much matching the angle of my spine. The left arm matching the angle of my shoulders. Then as I come down, from here my weight's going to start to move into my left side, so I feel a slight lateral shift, so I feel like my left knee's pulling away from my right knee. Then my left hip's going to work down first. That's going to push my hips back, it's going to keep my chest down towards the ground. Where many people struggle, the left hip works up and back too early, upper body tilts back. It starts to move into your left side, your left knee's going to pull away from your right knee. The lateral shift, so my left hip's going to move closer to the golf bag behind me, maybe 3 or 4 inches. Then from here, the left knee is going to push away from my right knee. Then at impact, don't let the left hip elevate too quickly. I'm going to feel like my hip's going to move down and then up and back. So left hip's going to work down in transition. That's going to keep my pelvis relatively flat towards the ground. It's going to keep my chest down, and it's also going to allow my hips to work up and back. The more my left hip rises and goes to the right, from there the club gets really stuck. If you want the club to top back, so keep your left hip a little bit lower in transition. So feel like you push your hips back. So feel like you're trying to push both hips back into your heels. Left hip works a little bit laterally, works down in transition. Then I almost feel like I'm pushing my hips back into my heels. That's a good feeling. So hips back into heels. As you can see from here, trying to push my hips back into my heels. My arms are going to come down a little bit more in front of me. If my left hip elevates too quickly, the club's going to get stuck. If a lateral shift, so my left hip is going to move closer to the golf bag behind me. My left hip's going to stay a little bit more down in transition. That's going to allow my arms to move a little bit more in front of me. It's going to allow my chest to work a little bit more down towards the ground. Start to push my weight more into my heels. My hips are going to stay back. The lower body's going to clear out the way first. Shift the weight first into your left foot. Let the left hip work a little bit lower, and then from here you're just going to push your weight back into your heels. So left hip's going to work forward down, and as we come into impact, left hip's going to start to clear out the way. Belt buckle and chest facing the target, and all your weight stacked onto your left side. 3 simple tips that's going to help you improve your impact position. If you've got any thoughts or any questions regarding that video, please feel free to comment below with anything that you're struggling with within your game at this moment in time. That subscribe button, like the video.